This is television for the Isles of Scilly, brought to you with Worldwide Financial Planning, Truro and Penwith College, and the Scilly Lottery. From Radio Scilly, this is scillytv.com. "38 youngsters embarked on a week of water safety exercises on Porthmelon Beach, and at the end of the events they rolled all their skills into one long regatta followed by a barbecue. The sessions have been arranged by the Community Safety Partnership and Devon and Cornwall Police in Scilly. Youngsters learned rescue skills with policeman Dave Horban.
We've been doing it all week. Part of the sort of water week, we've been introducing surf life saving. And apart from being a police officer, I'm involved with that on the mainland with Portreath. I've been for 40 odd years. So really it's about giving them some skills in surf life saving and hopefully encouraging them to not only be on the water but in the water. So I think they need to improve sort of the swimming techniques. And it's been going really well.
Freya Wild says she gained a lot from exercises on the beach.
Probably grab a board and try and get them on the board as quickly as possible. Get them out the water.
Is there anything you've learned not to do?
You have to be quite careful and make sure they're not hurt, and don't pull them around if they're unconscious or something.
And Jess Kirk said she developed some favourite activities during the week-long programme of sessions.
Windsurfing.
So another windsurfer?
Yeah.
Are you going to continue with it?
Yeah, definitely.
So what's it feel like to be on the board then when the wind's up and you're sailing out around the bay?
It's just really fun, but it's really scary when you're heading for rocks.
Andy Thomas is from the Community Safety Partnership and says the sessions have gone well.
I think it's gone brilliantly, but of course the people to ask are the kids. And I would say maybe the parents as well, and maybe it's something that you won't notice at first, but it might come to a point where you're on the water with your child in the coming weeks or months, and they might do something that surprises you, and you go, well, where'd you learn that? And they might hopefully say, well, we learned that on the Sea Safety Week.
He says the biggest challenge in arranging the event was what to do if the weather was foul.
I suppose the weather has been a big factor in things like, say, the sailing and the windsurfing. So sailing is a bit more cumbersome, but the windsurfers mean they have to get in the water, so they get cold. So there's a bit of a dead heat between those two, I've got to say. We had a bit of a windy day on yesterday and Wednesday. So logistically, we had our fingers crossed that the weather would be favourable for the whole week, but we also had a plan that if it wasn't to be, we would do something else with them.
Will it happen again? Partners are uncertain whether funding will be available with government cutbacks.
I'd like to think so, but as with a lot of government departments, we can't really speak for any sort of period longer than this October at the moment, because obviously that's when the big announcements are going to be made regarding changes in funding. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll happen again next year, but we'll see.
My dreams have lost my phone, and what's going out of the floor? I love this record, baby, but I can't see straight anymore. Keep it cool. What's the name of this club? I don't remember, but it's alright. I'm alright. Just dance.
So if you're a complete novice, never had a go, it just gives you the chance to have a go in one of our traditional gigs. It just gives people a chance to see what we do down here. I mean, we've got a lot of gigs down here and a lot of advertising. Just gets people, interested and gets them to learn a bit about the history.
Yeah, at the moment we're raising money to have some work done on the bonnet. She needs new floorboards and plats, and I think most of the boats are looking pretty good at the moment. We're continually looking for money for new paddles because they get worn out after a few years' use, and finally we are trying to raise money to get a new gig to compete in the World Championships and compete against the mainland crews when it comes to the big events.
So with lots of enthusiasm,
yeah,
and then father had to take over, and now I've run out of steam, so mum's on the job.
Yeah,
and you're doing a very good job down there.
Control your poison, babe. Roses have thorns, they say, and we're all getting host tonight. Oh, and what's going on the floor? I love this record, baby, but I can't see straight anymore.
There's concern amongst some members of the community over how the town hall's spending cash given by the Department of Health to deal with stroke care. In February 2009, councillors voted to apportion the £75,000 a year under the stroke care grant to a number of projects over 3 years of the grant. In the first year, £30,000 was set aside for a lift for Park House. But £35,000 of that £75,000 grant was, according to the plan, spent on director salaries, consultants or review work. Now it's understood that around £30,000 has gone to the Normandy swimming pool and funding from the stroke care grant's gone to the Dial-A-Ride scheme. We spoke to 3 councillors who told Radio Scilly they've received complaints or concerns from the public over the decisions made which some islanders feel don't directly benefit people with stroke. Carol Clark from the Islands Link organisation says it's an issue they've taken up.
Sue Williams, in her regular meetings with Penny Pen Howard, we have been talking about that grant allocation and where it was spent. Most of it went on capital expenditure on facilities that the council felt would benefit people with a disability and people with a disability following stroke. And I know there is some concern in the community over how those decisions were taken.
Carol says some money has gone to people who may be viewed by the community as more obvious recipients of this specialist grant. Scilly TV and Radio Scilly try to get a council comment, but key personnel are on holiday. We'll bring you an official statement if one is received. William Thomas of the Town Hall led a delegation of islanders to have a look around care facilities for people with stroke and emergency facilities at Trelisk. He says they're keen to hear about islanders' experiences.
What we intend to do now is to look at the aftercare. What happens to people after they have suffered a stroke and they've been given their treatment package and come back to the islands? What level of care do they receive here? What is actually required for that care, and how it is delivered? So what we want to try and do is to identify good practice, what's best practice, and certainly within the island community there may well be areas which we can look at to expand on, such as the telecare medicine monitoring package. We also want to identify if there are any gaps, to see if there's any improvements which can be made. And so what we would like to do is to invite anyone who has suffered a stroke or a TIA within the last 2 years, if they would like to come forward, so that we can interview them and gain from their experience. Perhaps if they wouldn't like to do that, their carers could come forward, because that's a very important integral part of their care, that whoever's looking after them, to support them. So we would like to invite anybody to come and share their experiences with us, to help us in this project. That, again, as I said, really we want to try and see if we can improve, if necessary, the aftercare which is already provided, or indeed learn from their experience that we can share with others, particularly the Care Quality Commission.
It's a shop with no produce on the shelves. It's not too unusual in Scilly in winter, when the supply boat the Green Maritha doesn't sail, but you would expect to see a business with bare shelves at the start of September. And that's because an Old Town lifeline is about to change hands. Val Borkwell is taking over the Old Town stores. It's been touch and go whether the community business stays open over the last year. First, its former proprietor, Dave Mabray, of the Isles of Scilly Wholesalers over at Porthmelon, warns that closure was on the cards. Last year, it looked like there was nobody available to staff the business, and closing was an option. But at the 11th hour, a team member was found. Then, because of the cost of the lease, Dave was preparing to throw in the towel this summer. But again, there was a last-minute reprieve for the residents of Oldstown when Val, who's worked in the business over the past year, stepped in to take it over. Val says as she's been involved for the past 12 months, she has an insight into what residents need, and she's going to try to meet those demands.
I sell a lot of pastas and Indian food and sort of like sauce mixes and things. People seem to like that down here, quite a lot of that. And the boys like their beers, and they like the Cornish beers, and they like their wine. So that goes quite well as well.
Val says that local islands produce is particularly popular, and she's been talking to farm providers to see what she can put on the shelves.
Then I'm going to ask the people what they want. And if I can get it, I'll get it for them. And I'm going to get some more local produce and go from there.
Val says she's also going to have to be flexible to the needs of the men working on the new school build and needs to make sure their needs are met in time for the height of the project, when up to 60 workers could be calling in for lunchtime snacks.
For the school builders, I'm going to open some longer hours for them. They're a nice bunch of lads that I've met so far. They come in for pasties. I've got to know them quite well. Not 60 of them. There's not 60 here at the moment. And they're a good bunch of lads. And I don't see why they couldn't come along and just get a snack when they want it. And the school children.
And apart from some minor changes in opening hours, it'll be business as normal from the weekend. Val says people have said she's crazy taking on a 6-day-a-week operation when many others her age would be enjoying their retirement. But she says she's a people person and putting her feet up's not for her.
I've always worked with people and talked to people. People can come in, they can have a chat if they want to. If they're not having a good day, they have a chat, I listen. That's all what it's all about. Not necessarily how much they spend. But if it gives older people a chance to come out and get a bit of shopping, whereas before they couldn't, they can sit down, I can make them a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, whatever they want, and they're quite happy, and so am I.
The first consignment of goods from her new suppliers are expected to arrive ahead of the weekend, and the shop officially opens for business on Saturday. Val says she's had plenty of support from people in Oldstown. Next door, Keith and Sue at the Old Town Inn are being supportive. Keith will help her out with her alcohol selling arrangements until she can sit a course and be allowed to sell drink in her own name next year. The only option was to do the course in the mainland and take 2 days out of her schedule, which she hasn't got time for, or wait until 2011 and sit the course in Scilly.
Keith is standing as a supervisor for me until I get my full licence.
So it's just continuing with the cleaning and scrubbing ahead of the big opening this weekend. And Val says all in all there's only going to be one major change. The name of the business. It'll be Old Town Stores No More.